nice over the weekend with lots of sunshine and above normal temperatures, especially on Sunday, where we're carrying that warmth over to today as well. Highs range anywhere from 53 in Kokomo to near 60 in southern locations, with skies today that'll be mostly sunny. Now, tomorrow for Valentine's Day, it's just as mild with highs in the mid-50s, but there's more in the way of cloud cover around, and then there'll also be the chance of a few scattered showers around tomorrow as well. That first band of rain comes in shortly after midday, works its way through the area, then we're dry, more shower chances, it looks like Tuesday evening after sunset. So if you do have dinner plans Tuesday evening, just know that there will be some rain chances across the area. High temperatures going forward, though. We're into the 60s on Wednesday. Thursday's the wettest day of the week, and then you see the dip in temperatures. By Friday, we're down into the 30s, only to rebound again this weekend. So enjoy the warmth here the first half of the week. Warm and windy on Wednesday, followed by the wet weather on Thursday.
In this breaking news, two 13-year-old girls are missing from Carroll County this morning.
They disappeared yesterday afternoon in what we're told is a treacherous area just outside of Delphi. That's where our Naomi Peskovitz is this morning with more on the search effort. Naomi?
And Ben and Julia, this is a story, these pictures you will see online today as you wake up and look through your feed, because everyone who knows these two young women is desperately hoping to find them. This is the entrance here to the trail where they were last seen. We know family members have been out here for hours. Right now, though, the search has been suspended while it's been dark. Police, though, telling us they do plan to pick it back up in the morning. But right now, no one knows where these two 13-year-olds might be. So we want to show you their pictures so you can better look. Here's a look. Liberty, or Libby German, is described as 5'4" with a heavy build, shorter shoulder-length blonde hair and blue eyes. She was wearing a tie-dyed shirt that's fringed at the bottom, gray sweatpants, and unknown black lettering on it with some black Nike shoes. Abigail, or Abby Williams, also 13, is 5'4". She has a small build, medium-length blonde hair, and hazel eyes. She was wearing a gray zip-up sweatshirt with a burgundy t-shirt underneath and then blue jeans. They were last seen around 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon near an abandoned railroad bridge. It's known as the Monon High Bridge. It's here just outside Delphi, right where we are. They were supposed to meet up with a family member to pick them up here, but when that family member got here, they were not here to be met by that family. Meantime, we've been sharing these photos online, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you see them, please share them as well. We did speak with one of the young women's grandfather. He'll be speaking with us in about a half an hour to share what they've been doing to help find these girls. But in the meantime, right now, the search has been suspended because it's just so dark, there's not much to see. Ben and Julia?
Okay, Naomi, thanks to you guys for your efforts to get there this morning and bring us the latest.
Why Libby? Why Abby? Why Delphi? Why Carroll County?
Valentine's Day. So, guess give your sweetie a kiss, but is a very sad day. Um, 7 years since Abby and Libby's bodies were tragically found. And tragic being the conditions they were in. We lost those two girls 7 years ago today. They went missing on the 13th, and their bodies were found on the 14th. That being today. It is True Crime. Welcome, pajama time. It's a very sad video, and I came across it kind of last minute. I thought it was very fitting because with all of the things going on in this trial, a lot unprecedented. Um, we tend to lose focus on what this is all about, and we get caught up, and I'm guilty as well. You get caught up in all the legalese and what's going on, the Supreme Court deals and this and that all needs to be paid attention to. But I think sometimes, not intentionally, we may lose sight of what this is all about. And we're going to take the time because we feel, due respect to the families. Can't imagine Bobby Two Trill, Kelly Two Trill. We've all said it. We can't imagine what these families are going through. That video gave me goosebumps, and I was filled with all kind of emotion when I first seen it. And that's just a fraction of what these families have to be going through. We're frustrated and we feel for them, but just imagine that being, your kids that you still, you lost so violently, and nothing, I mean, things have been done, but nothing to progress this case and get justice for Libby and Abby. So all right, there's my beginning of the show rant. How you guys doing? And we're just let's just we don't have to go through everything that happened. I think most people are familiar with this case. I started following it. Bobby, you brought it to my attention probably about 4.5 or so years ago, right around 2019. Just, within a couple years, this happened back in 2017. So, I got wind of this, about 2 years after the fact. So, and I could never in my wildest dreams thought that, because it seems so cut and dry in a sense. But I'll just open the floor to whoever wants to, talk, whoever wants to go. Let's talk about Abby and Libby.
I remember first hearing about this on an episode of Brain Scratch, the Lord and Arch channel. And it was probably about 6 months or so after this happened. I didn't even living so close, never knew nothing about it until then. But the minute I saw it, man, it captured me immediately. These two beautiful little girls. And at that point, being 6 months after it or so on his episode, he was even like, they thought this was going to be solved within a week or two. And here we are 6 months later. I never imagined that even back then we'd be sitting here 7 years later going, still no real conclusions.
And Kelly, just, before you guys continues, I'll let you guys, talk. I just, Kelly, you had brought up tossed us some photos. So while you guys are talking about Abby and Libby, and, I kind of want this, because we are going to get into some of the, more technical detective type stuff of the case later, but I want to spend most of the time as kind of a celebration of life. So I have a bunch of pictures I'll be flashing up. You can continue or you can stop what you're saying and talk about the pictures, whatever. So
I can actually, if you want, I can kind of just go over, obviously we don't know the girls, but we all discussed that we really want the focus today to be on their lives and a celebration of their lives. And again, we'll touch on the case too, just because it's important to keep it in the light.
Sure.
But while you're flashing the pictures, I can go ahead and go over some of the details that have been given about the type of girls that they were, because it sounds like they were pretty incredible, and you'll see it in
Yeah.
the pictures.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go ahead and start with Abby while you're putting some pictures up. So Abby Williams was born on June 23rd, 2003. She was an 8th grade student, played the saxophone in the band at school. She played volleyball and attended church regularly with her family. She was an avid reader, which she enjoyed greatly. She also enjoyed camping, swimming, riding ATVs, which you'll see in some of the pictures here, and anything outdoors, which makes sense for her being at Moon on High Bridge that day. She loved to do art and photography, and she loved animals, especially her cat, Bongo. And just to keep this realistic, I mean, I'd like to just say some of the names of the people left behind that are dealing with this. I think sometimes we forget that they're real people. So I
Yeah.
think once
Yeah.
we present their names, sometimes it gives them a face again. So she left behind her mom, Anna Williams, and her grandparents, Diane and Eric Erkson. And then Libby.
I can't. I know I got pictures of
It's okay. I know there was a lot in there, but that's
them.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one of them.
And I'll go ahead on to Libby. I know we haven't made it to her pictures yet, but there are plenty in there, so we will get there. But Libby was born on December 27th, 2002. She was also an 8th grader. As you can see her smile in that picture, she seems like she was a lot of fun. She also loved to play volleyball, softball, soccer, and she was a swimmer. She was also in the band like Abby. She loved painting, doing crafts, and going on vacations. And in some of these pictures, you'll actually see Libby and Abby on vacation together with their families. So it just shows how close they actually were. And again, just some people that, you know, survived her passing were her parents, Derek German and Carrie German, and then her grandparents, who tend to be a little bit more vocal. Becky and Mike Patty, I do follow them on Facebook, and my heart breaks for them, seeing the posts, you know, and how much they deal with all of this on a daily basis. Brad and Terry German, and then her siblings, Kelsey and Glenna. And Kelsey now has a daughter. Unfortunately, she missed out on meeting her and seeing her. And then 2 other younger siblings, Alexis and Hayden. So
Yeah,
just
I apologize. I didn't get all the photos
Oh, no,
apparently.
it's okay.
But some of the ones that you were mentioned, yes, I think it had Libby's grandfather in it.
Mhm.
Was it Libby? Okay, her grandfather in it and whatnot. Great picks though. You can really get a set. I mean, these were 2 very active little girls. I mean, and had such a close, you know, relationship, you know, with each other, you know, almost like sisters. And I want to bring this up right here. Does that look familiar in the background? Is that the Monon High Bridge?
I thought that as soon as I saw
Yeah.
that picture too. Yeah, I actually thought the same
It
thing.
looks very similar, and obviously not of the day, you
Yeah.
know, that all the, you know, all that happened. But it was obviously a place that they had gone before. She had gone with other friends, Libby. I'm not sure. Those are siblings?
I believe the one on the right is her older sister, Kelsey. I'm not
Kelsey, okay.
positive. The one on the left I've seen in a bunch of the pictures, I think might be a cousin because he was in quite a few pictures also, but I'm not 100% sure on that one.
No, okay. But I seen that and I was like, wow, that bridge looks familiar.
Yeah, I thought that as soon as I saw it too. And I know
And
the
then, you know,
grandmother.
it's like that. It just occurred to me, well, this is probably something that kids do, man. It's got a cool view down there. If I was
Yeah.
their age, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd be down there playing, you know, G.I. Joe or something, you know, my plastic M16, you know, playing around in the woods. I did that anyway. How cool would it have been if I could have done something like that at that particular location? So I could see where it attracts, you know, people. And that bridge actually starts, it's really, you know, a train track, but it's a bridge. Ends or starts where the trail ends, you know.
Mhm.
So once you walk through the trail, you got all these little benches, you can sit and sit in nature and things like that. And then it ends there at the bridge, which again, I can see why kids would be attracted to that.
From what I understand, they did geocaching down there quite a bit too.
Yeah.
That's another one of their hobbies. Or anybody who
Mhm.
doesn't know what geocaching is, it's Pokemon Go in real life.
And yeah, basically.
Yeah, I know the older sister was really involved in that too, Kelsey. I remember you bringing that up
Mhm.
before. So
Yeah, so this is, something that in their minds was benign,
and
not
that's
not
exactly what the grandmother, Patty, had mentioned in one of the interviews that I watched of her. She said they were doing exactly what I would have wanted them to do. They're not sitting behind a TV screen. They're not sitting around playing video games. They're not stuck in the house. They're going out and they're in
Mhm.
nature and they're doing what kids should be doing that age. It's
Absolutely.
exactly what I wanted them to be doing.
Yes.
And if you look at all the affidavits and everything, there was quite a few kids out there that day. I mean, there was a whole
Mhm.
nother set of girls that were seen by people doing the exact same thing, out there taking pictures, sitting on benches,
Yep.
going on the bridges. It seemed like a popular place to hang out.
Yeah, and I think, Richard Allen state that he was out there sitting down. He'd sit down on the bench and read or whatever. This was a common thing that he did. A lot of people did that. And I've heard people say, well, that's just, yeah, okay. He just sits on a bench and reads in the woods. Who does that? A lot of
A
fucking
lot of
people
people.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's it. Why does that seem so uncommon? I mean,
Yeah.
are you going to find more, a more quiet atmosphere and more relaxing and to read in your house where you have noise of the cars or whatever? Maybe you have, kids, Kelly. Hard to read a book when 4 kids are running around, right?
Yeah.
all right.
If you're by yourself in a small wooded area, man, surrounded by trees and nature, it's a more serene, atmosphere. And you could probably, I could see why people would read a book.
Hell, I mean, we've touched on mental health a bunch of times on here. One of the things we talked about was grounding and being out in nature and resetting
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
So many people I could see doing that out there. I mean, it looks like a very beautiful area. So I mean, it just makes sense
Right.
to go sit and not be involved in the crazy of the world,
All right.
So
Of course, kids are going out there for different reasons. They're out there. Of course, they're taking pictures on the bridge. The same thing they did on that fateful day. Taking pictures. I think Abby. They had a picture of Abby on the bridge there that went to one of their Instagrams or something. Snapchat. I think it was. This was just a common thing, and here it was 40 degrees when I walked up to the store about an hour and a half ago. I don't know what it is now, but for it being close to 60 on that day 7 years ago, yeah, it's a little unseasonably warm.
Yeah, it is.
Crazy stuff, man.
It is.
It's unbelievable. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I walked in today. I was right around 12 o'clock, and it's how ingrained this stuff is into my brain the last 6 years or so. I looked at the clock at 12 o'clock, and that was my first thought that 7 years ago today they were being found right now.
Right.
yeah.
I can only imagine how the families are feeling. It's horrible.
And that's why, I think we also wanted to make it a point to really focus on the girls today, because I'm sure everyone's doing, an anniversary post and everyone's touching on all the details of, which of course we're going to touch on some of them, but I think a lot of people aren't putting enough emphasis on the life of the girls too. And imagine one going through that, some of them having to identify these girls after the fact. And then you got to think, really, I mean, it was quiet for quite a few years. So they had a couple anniversaries where it wasn't necessarily thrown in their face. It's always there. But then since Richard Allen's arrest, I mean, and especially this anniversary is probably one of the worst out of all of them because it's in the media so much. There's not a channel they're going to turn on with news that's not talking about it. There's not too many media pages that aren't going to be talking about it. So I can only imagine how much more difficult that makes things right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
I can't I can't put it's hard for me to even put myself in the family's shoes.
Same.
And as pajama time, as Ed mentioned, just couldn't either. Can't even imagine. Can never imagine having to, deal with it. I mean, you want to put it to rest. Yes, it's not going to bring Abby and Libby back, but you can get some sort of closure, because to me it feels like that healing has been delayed or slowed down because that closure hasn't really been there, so
And the thought of
you
that
can't
person,
really end that chapter and start the healing chapter, to me it would seem.
yeah, the thought of that person still walking around and living their life, or like we talked about this before, just
Yeah.
constantly every person you look at wondering if they were involved or if they have something to do with it, especially with all these cult allegations out and living in such a small town. How many people did we say last time? It was like less than 3,000 people in that town,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember in one of the shows that I watched, they compared it to the size of a high school, which I can relate to because my high school was huge. So like but the thought of that, you still knew everybody. I can't imagine living in a
Hmm.
town so small and 7 years later still having to look at every face saying, is that Bridge guy? Was Bridge guy a part of it? Is it a cult? Is that person involved in the cult? Is this person covering this up? Will this happen again? What if it happens to some of our other girls or our other kids in town? When's it going to rear its head again? That's awful. That's
There's
a
all
horrible way to
kind of
live.
fears. Yeah, there's all kind of fears associated on a societal level,
Hmm.
unless everybody there is, uh, Richard Allen did it. Then they may
I don't
feel
think
some
so.
comfort, which I don't believe either.
Yeah.
But
Over the years, man, with all these other little things, these people popping up and things like that, it's really showed the dirty underside of people's society, where they live.
Yeah.
When you have like Paul Eder and Chadwell and Ron Logan, all these unsavory characters, all of a sudden you're
mhm,
finding out, man, these are the people in my community. It keeps
Yeah.
it going as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
people are getting to see the real nasty underside. And then you got these suspects over here. You got a guy who they don't know if he did it, is in prison right now, not jail, prison, and all the shady things. Or we lost this. This judge recused themselves, and they're seeing all this shady stuff. Man, it's really causing people to give them a little bit of a stink eye.
Even
Yeah.
down to the investigation. I mean, the thought of what if this happens again and they don't pick up the sticks? What if they don't, look around the crime scene and it's unsecure for 3 days and then they come back and pick up more evidence? The thought of that and the fact that you can't depend on your police department or your investigators in that town or your court system to do their job properly is a scary thought.
And
That's a terrifying thought.
right. And how many parents are, sitting back and thinking, what if Richard Allen isn't the guy and you got this guy running around? Are my kids safe? I mean, nobody wants to be in the shoes of Abby and Libby's family. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to experience that pain and having to bury your child. I seen it happen with my grandmother. She had to, burying my mom, and even at her age, it was devastating. I mean, my mom passed a little earlier than she should have, but at least she had close to 60 years on the planet, not some measly 13, 14 years. And I say that ain't a lot of time, you
Mhm.
know um it can, in the grand scope of things, man. They had just started their lives, man. They had so much going for them. It is, it truly is heartbreaking, and it really takes and makes it hard to put into words. I mean, you think 7 years ago, or 13 years, 14 years ago. I mean, think about how much living we all did, and or in 7 years, I should say, in the past 7 years. Think about everything that we've been through, personally, in 7 years. I mean, it seems like a long time ago. I mean, 2017, pre-COVID, pre-2020, Mayan calendar, destruction of us all, type shit.
But time is passing by for all of us, and I'm sure for them, they're still standing still because
They are.
there is
Trauma
no
does that
progress.
to you. Yes,
Yeah.
trauma, and of course there's going to be, a PTSD factor involved with these parents,
Yep.
I mean, that's a painful trauma. I can only assume because, I haven't lost a child. But I can only imagine that that's something, because trauma will do that to you. At the point of the trauma, you stop, growing and whatnot mentally. Not that you stay a child, but you incorporate, certain. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? Yes, it does. It slows down. It stops, it makes it really really rough. It's just so fucking sad, man.
Yeah.
Pajama Time says, I'm like everyone else. I want justice for Abby and Libby, but I also want the right person or persons behind bars.
Absolutely.
And RA is not on their list. Yeah. Same. I mean, and that's what's so frustrating about it, because I think we're all in agreement that the parents and the family want that too. They just don't want somebody thrown away who's innocent, because that really just that doesn't do anything. I mean,
That I'm tired
other
of
than
hearing.
take away, Richard Allen's life. If he's not the right ones, get the right ones behind bars, no matter how deep it goes. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a couple minutes. But go ahead, Kelly.
I think I'm also tired of hearing like the ones that are. We all need to stay open minded to whether or not he could or could not be involved, and I get that. We don't know all the evidence. We don't see everything. None of us were there that day, but
Right.
I'm so sick of hearing the interviews where there's people that are so pro he did it that they're like blinded by everything else
Yeah.
that's in front of them, and they're saying, well, let's not put all this shit out here and have him get off, because what if he is guilty? Well, at the same time, you can't have a dude sitting behind bars and just put him away when he didn't do shit. There's
Yeah.
two sides to
In
that.
prison, as
It
you
goes both
mentioned, Bobby,
ways.
in prison. He shouldn't be in
Yeah.
prison. He should be in a county jail.
Yeah. That's the way it's supposed to work.
If you're awaiting trial and you're a suspect and you're awaiting trial and you're being detained, you should be you don't go to prison until you're fucking convicted.
Yep. And Lobrato said it was so bad when he was defending him that he said in his 25 years, in Scrummond's 25 years of being a defense attorney, they have never seen a pretrial defendant in this kind of shape or in these situations. And he said that when he went to visit him, even when they moved him from Westville to, I can't think of the next place that he's in now, but he said he's shackled to his chest. He said, I've never seen someone shackled to their chest to where we've asked them, like they pretty much treat him like Hannibal Lecter. Can you remove the handcuffs long enough for us to shake his hand? He is our client, and so that he can sign paperwork, because this is affecting his legal rights. He needs to be able to sign paperwork, and they refused. And he said in their collective 50 years, they have never seen a pretrial defendant treated that way. And that's what I can't wrap my head around. How are they justifying that at this point? How is that? How's it even legal? I guess I know I don't have a law background, but I just can't wrap my head around how they can justify that, especially when you have so many attorneys, collectively 50 years between Lobrato and Scrummond, and then I can't remember how many it is between it. I think it's over that for Baldwin and Rosie, saying the same thing, that they've never seen this. And then you look at people like defense diaries. Why can't I think of his name? Shit, we talk about him all the time. Mata said the same thing. He's a defense attorney, and he's like, I've never in my career, and I think he said he's been practicing for like 30-40 years, I've never in my career seen a defendant treated this way when they're still considered innocent. And I don't know. I'm not saying he didn't do it, but I mean, he should be able to sign paperwork at the very least.
Right. Go ahead, Bobby.
I've only ever seen or heard about him ever doing that with a really large, aggressive person. He doesn't strike me as somebody that you need to fear necessarily. He's a small guy. And for a couple guards to be around him, not to even unshackling while they're in the presence. I haven't even seen them do that with some of the most violent people.
They
Right.
It
said
is
they had to
weird.
talk through a door, like the little openings that they
Yeah.
slide the food trays through. That's how they had to talk to him in some of these facilities. And then in the other one, it was like a makeshift kitchen. They didn't even have an actual room where they could speak with their client.
Yeah.
And I don't see how that's
Here's
giving
the
him a
good
fair chance.
question. Do any of you guys know, was there any bail bond for Allen?
I don't think so. No,
No.
he's held without
I
bond.
didn't hear anything. Yeah.
I remember there was a push early on after he got arrested to try to set him at like 500,000 or $1 million or something, and
They denied it.
yeah,
Mhm. John Times says, I really believe that law enforcement dropped the ball, and because RA happened to be there that day after 5 years, the pressure of law enforcement, they grabbed
they
RA.
needed somebody so that
Yeah.
so that they can have their sheriff elections.
Sleuth Intuition, welcome to the show, buddy.
Oh,
Richard
hey, we've
Allen will,
watched their show before.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Richard Allen will end his own life the moment he gets a chance.
That's the scary part. That's
Well,
the
if he
really
did,
scary
if he
would
did
part.
not
it, it wouldn't bother me.
surprise me. What's that, Bobby?
I said if he did that to these girls, it wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, I mean that's the and if he's innocent, but you know, he feels that he's going to be railroaded no matter what, that's going to be a lot of push to take his own life. So maybe that's why he is in a facility like that. I don't know.
Oh, sitting in a cell for 23 hours a day would be enough for me. Like, regardless of what the situation is, what the evidence is against me or not against me, all these arguments, whether or not I think I have a foot in the door of getting out, 23 hours a day would be enough to make me go insane. I couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
I feel for him and his family. And I'm not saying he's innocent by any means. I think I have a hard time believing he isn't right now. But at the same time, I think it's a really harsh punishment for someone who hasn't been convicted of anything.
I think even if by chance you were an individual who had never heard of this case, and you know, somehow and you take and you look at the evidence, you know, and you look at the defense of everything that we have right now, I think you'd be hard pressed to say, oh yeah, he without a doubt did it.
No, yeah,
Because
no way.
there's a lot of reasonable doubt in the prosecution's case.
And all it takes is the one juror, man. That's
And it
it.
only takes the one.
it.
Yeah.
I actually, if you don't mind, since we have Sleuth Intuition in here, I believe that's the show that we watched who did the interview with Patrick Westphal. I'd love to hear your opinion of the case. If you want to throw something up in the chat with us, that would be awesome, because you got a firsthand account of what Patrick Westphal said. And I definitely, I loved that interview, and it gave me some insight into his personality, with him being a person that's been thrown around in this case and all of the cult surroundings. And I'm just kind of curious to see what your opinion is too on the situation as it stands.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just saw that. I was kind of excited to see you was in the chat. So
yeah, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
you know, and I would love to, if any other true crime podcasts would like to just do a big round table with us, I'm sure we all wouldn't mind collaborating with other you know, podcasters and shows. And you know, the more heads you put together, you know, I mean, who knows what you can come up with. Slew says, I'm keeping an open mind. Could all be partly true.
That's all we can do, is keep an open mind
Yeah.
and accept things as they come and try
That's
to use
right.
reason
Yeah.
to try to determine it. I can just say this: unless they have, you know, if they took Alan's car and stuff, if they got DNA, it's slam dunk, forget it. But
Yeah.
just with what they have out there right now, if they're going to court on this, if I'm a juror, man, no way I'm convicting this dude.
If Barbara McDonald knows as much as she's saying she does, which I have a hard time because her stories kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
She stated right on court TV that there is no DNA evidence and there are no fingerprints linking Richard Allen to this case. And,
Mm-hmm.
she seems to have such a tight connection with some of these investigators that kind of makes me think, if you're throwing that out there, why would you throw that out there if that's one of the things they're holding back? And Liggett said that there is DNA from the crime scene. So if there is DNA, and then you guys are saying it's not Richard Allen's DNA, then whose DNA is it and why is it there?
Right.
And then the other thing that was brought up recently that I thought was really interesting in one of the videos that you sent me, Kurt, was the bullet. And she talked about how that unspent shell or unspent bullet was found in the dirt, because that was one of my questions before, was whether or not it was covered in dirt or if it was on the surface, and when exactly it was found. So she said it wasn't found in the first 3 days of that investigation when that crime scene was secure. It was found inserted in the dirt, not just on top. So they don't know how long it was there. Whether or not forensics will show that in court proceedings, we'll find out. But that was interesting to me because that was one of my questions. Could that have been there months prior? Could that have happened during the time that the crime scene was unsecure? Because then they unsecure the crime scene for 2 or 3 days where, if people are curious, they're going to go down there. You have someone that owns that property. You think they're not going to go down there and check it out? There's a house that overlooks that crime scene.
That was Ron
behind it.
Logan's house, right?
Yeah. So Ron Logan, and there's another neighbor on the
Oh,
opposite
yeah.
side
Yeah.
of-
I can't remember the name. Does it start with an M or something, right?
I don't remember, but I know that they said that house can actually look down on the crime scene as well. So you're not going to tell me people weren't curious after the fact. So once that crime scene was unsecured, you can't tell me there wasn't traffic through there. So then you decide to secure it again 2 or 3 days later and then find this bullet. I can't even imagine how that's evidence at this point, or how that would hold up at all,
It won't. It won't really.
Disputed. It'll definitely be disputed. The defense will have their own gun experts in, and they'll be saying the opposing thing. And with the DNA, if they do have DNA and it comes from an unknown person, that's going to bolster the defense as well. Then even more reasonable doubt. So it seems pretty flimsy.
As Rebecca
we have
Ann
wondered that
had stated.
Rebecca.
Yeah, I think we're all. My head went right to that for some reason, that it was planned. Now they could have easily, planned it and then step on it to, make it look like, that's why we didn't, see it or whatnot. I mean, there's really, you got to keep, as Slew said, you got to keep an open mind, with all of this, and your opinions and how you feel about the case may change over time. The more that comes out, and you have to, I think, be flexible in that way. Slew says, in my opinion, the prosecution is waiting patiently for trial to lay out everything they have. The defense, in my opinion, is having it out in the public arena, and that's what we are reacting to. I'm sure they have more. That's a great point.
And that's what
and
I'm
I
saying.
agree with that. Sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
I was going to say, if they do have something, like they took stuff from his residence, maybe they have boot prints that match his, maybe they have something like that that would be big. But if they're counting on something like just how fast a person is racking a slide, to put impressions on a bullet or something, that there's a lot going into that. How fast did he rack it? Does a slower rack put different impressions on it? Can you get 10 bullets to match out of that gun? Can you match the same markings with another gun? That stuff to me it's not even going to matter, that bullet evidence, because the defense, I'm sure, will just tear that apart and go, look, this is not an exact science. Even the person who did the testing, what did he say it was? He said it was, I don't know if he said it was problematic, but more he was saying that this is my opinion.
Yeah.
And in response to that, I have 2 responses to that. So one, I do believe the defense is putting more out. I completely agree with that, but I also think that's part of their defense tactic, because now look at how many people are watching this and how many people got involved when Richard Allen's attorneys were taken away because of what they knew. And because of all eyes being on this case, due to the defense putting out that Frank's memorandum, had they not done that, how much would have been swept under the rug, and how many of Richard Allen's rights would have been affected by that, because they didn't have people like Kara Winnicke or I can't think of his name, the other lawyer that was incredible in the Supreme Court, step up and, take over and get some of these things taken care of. So I do believe that they are putting more out there than the prosecution, but at the same time, I think it is part of their defense tactic. Now, on the flip side of that, if the prosecution has so much of this bombshell evidence, which I'm not saying they don't, I don't know what they have and they could be hiding a lot, why are they so nervous to go to trial? And I get it's a huge preparation period, but it's also been 2 years since he's been put away. And so at what point are you going to be ready? The defense has now had 4 different attorneys on the case, and they're still saying we're ready to roll. You've had the same people on this case from day one, and you're still not ready to go. And to me, if you had such a bombshell case, I think you wouldn't be quite so nervous about going to trial. But that's just my opinion. Again, of course.
Right. And Sleuth, reacting to CW, has joined us as well. In my opinion, the prosecution has no reason to give the public what they have on RA, Richard Allen. I feel,
I was just going to say, I don't think they have anymore myself, because we have investigators who were on this case who came out and said that they believe that it was these other people who did it. They've seen everything in this case. Those investigators have. And if they had seen something on the prosecution side that would bolster them, then surely they would be like, no, Richard Allen, they got the right guy. But these are people who were investigating the case who said they don't have the right guy. And these people will be on the stand for the defense as well. And imagine the defense sitting there listening to investigators that were on this case, both FBI agents and 2 investigators in 2 different counties, look at the jury and say, that ain't the right guy. That's going to be big, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think the timeline too is another thing. Like, I know you sent me a couple of videos recently, Kurt, that I was watching. And there are people that are like, the timeline doesn't add up for what Richard Allen is saying, because these girls that were on the trails would have seen him. I have to say I disagree with that as well. And hopefully we can see, the actual video footage of the buildings surrounding the area where his car should have been, or where he might have been passing in that time frame. And then we will see what time he actually arrived or left, or whether or not that car that they're discussing is his, because he did kind of have a more obvious car with black rims, and I get that. But I have to disagree that, Richard Allen may not have seen certain people on the trail, and vice versa. They may not have seen him, because I've been on a ton of trails back home, and there's been times where I've veered off the trail into the woods just to look at what's back there. I go looking for bones because I'm a weirdo. So I don't usually stay on the trails either. So, or what if he had to pee? He's like, I gotta go take a piss. And he walks back in the woods for a couple minutes. And by that time, the girls have already passed those 4 other girls that were on the trail. And then they're disputing whether or not the 3 girls that he's admitting he saw were different than the 4 girls that someone else is saying they saw. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's one and the same, and one just happened to be in a different area of the trail, kind of falling behind or something. So I have to say the timeline dispute where he absolutely is guilty and he's lying about that is a little shaky too. So
yeah. CW says they don't have any reason to lay their whole strategy out, but come on, do they seem confident in their case? Constantly trying to get the same defense team off when the Supreme Court said they shouldn't have been. That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's kind of my stance too. I think there's been a lot of focus on, we don't want these people here because we don't like their defense. Who gives a shit what their defense is? If your stance is so strong, you shouldn't give a fuck what they have to say. And that's just the way I look at it. If you're so strong in your belief that this man is guilty and you have so much evidence supporting that, it shouldn't matter what the defense is saying.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, the defense has been the one who's been on the ball about this. They've been the one who said, we want the cameras in the courtroom, or the prosecution saying, no. We want to have a trial soon. No. I don't think they're very confident myself, but the future will tell. Time will tell, hopefully. But there is still a good possibility, I think personally, and I don't see it in the near future, that this case might be completely thrown out against him for violating his rights anyway, and not having the materials that the prosecution was supposed to have. There's been so much bungling in this case that it wouldn't surprise me to see it get thrown out.
The pleading guilty thing is something that scares me a little bit, especially with these new charges that, like, you're calling him Slick Nick, because I like to call him that too. ever since we heard it, that Slick Nick is coming forward with, which I know at last I heard they haven't been approved yet, but that is something that's of concern to me, because if he does get granted, those new charges, then that could put the death penalty on the table, and that's a little bit concerning, because that in itself, I've done a lot of research on whether or not the death penalty is a deterrent for people not to commit murder. At the same time, it's also a deterrent for people to want to stay the length of a trial, because there's always that chance that someone's still going to convict you. We've had people that were innocent that were convicted on death row that found out years later were completely innocent. Mm-hmm. And so that is definitely something that I could see happening. Richard Allen getting scared of being killed and not having another opportunity to defend himself, and just saying, okay, I'll take this and I'll stay in for a certain amount of time. But I also don't think that's justice for the families either.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, man. I mean, nothing with this case would surprise me. Go ahead, Bobby.
I was just say 7 years, man. We've been talking about this whole time. Like all the ups and downs and things like that. There's been a lot of stuff thrown at us. Nobody knows for sure. But, to me, there's a lot of evidence pointing in other places other than Richard Allen. For me personally, if the guy did it, hang the guy, do what you got to do, and that's fine. But he's a family man, too. If he didn't do it, we just got to do this right. And the investigators real early on, within the first 3 days, were onto these group of people for a reason. Doug Carter said, we thought we were onto something at the beginning of this case. And that's what they were onto. The beginning of this case is these people. And it seems like the prosecution, it seems like they've been protected.
These people,
just
to clarify, you mean Holder and
the Odinist folks. Yeah. Yes, and then you get missing stuff from these guys with their interviews. You get we're not following up with these guys, but we got Richard Allen.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of blinders on the whole case. Yeah. It seems like it's like tunnel vision on one person. I'm not saying Richard Allen didn't have anything to do with it. I'm kind of leaning towards that side, but like you said, we have to keep an open mind, and like everyone seems to be saying. But it doesn't seem like the prosecution is keeping an open mind. It's very much tunnel vision. We're not looking at the other circumstances in the case, and that's what's concerning about it. And I don't know, Otis, if you want to touch on what we talked about before the show, the sticks on the bodies, and how different media is portraying that, and how the people who actually saw those crime scene photos are saying, there's no way in hell this was one person. Now, none of us have seen those. I don't know about people in the chat, but I know us personally, we haven't seen those. But based on something from someone who actually did see those, and one of the only people speaking out about what he saw, and he's not one of the court TV friends, is saying there's no way in hell this wasn't ritualistic, that these were just randomly placed, or that, there wasn't intention behind it, and that there's a reason why people don't want that information out there. And part of it could be affecting the trial's outcome, but at the same time, I have a hard time with that too. I don't know. I'll let you touch on it, because I feel like I've been talking the whole time.
No, you're fine. Because I was gonna ask, the chat, we've kind of talked on the, about the legality part, and then the courts and defense and prosecution, all that good stuff. And keeping an open mind. I like to know what everybody's opinion is, as far as it being ritualistic, and the whole Vinlander, Odinist, the Freemasons have even been, mentioned. And it said that, old Slick Nick and Brad Holder attend the same Freemasonic lodge. Now, yes, you can just fucking conspiracy. Brad Holder's 33rd or 32nd?
Yeah, 33.
He's the 33rd degree Freemason. I think he's the Grand Master or something.
Yeah,
I mean that's a pretty big deal. Whether you want to believe in it or not, it's a big deal to them.
Yeah.
And those sticks laying on the bodies of Abby and Libby, for one, were not taken in as any kind of evidence, which is strange to me. Especially after they've had, I think, who mentioned? Rebecca mentioned Elvis Fields. His sister had mentioned to the cops that, he said he spit on the body and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Why not take those sticks? Why not? They were actually in contact with 2 murder victims. You would think that you would take everything that is in contact with them. That's just me, you know.
You would
But
have to move the sticks in order to move the bodies. So if that's what you have to do, I can't in my right mind. And I get like it's like, well, we're human. Well, we're human. But when you're in that kind of fucking position, you can't make those types of mistakes. And
Right.
that's what irritates me. If you had to remove, and not sticks, now that we're seeing, it's not like these are tiny little twigs that were tossed on the body. We're talking parts of almost like the trunk of a tree holding down part of the body. You literally have to remove those in order to remove that body from the crime scene. So to me, you can't, there's no way after years of watching true crime tell me that there's no trace evidence on those branches at all.
You got to
There's no
pick
way.
up. You got to pick up a lot of the leaves, a lot of the sticks, because there's touch DNA transfer that the killer is going to have put on those sticks just by picking it up, maybe coughing on them, maybe Elvis feels spit on them. You know, the guy who refuses to take a polygraph, which, you know, I don't really hold against people too much, but in a case like this, I think I'd want to clear my name.
sure.
I would definitely do it. But yeah, you got to take everything. You got to clean up that scene and take anything that could possibly have any DNA on it, even if it is the girl's DNA. Like there was a picture going around that had the leaf with the blood on it and things like that that should have been taken. None of that stuff should be left behind. You don't know whose blood that is. You know, the perpetrator could have cut himself. You got to test that. Everything needs to be tested. They did botch this. This is poor police investigative work. It's ridiculous. All the investigators who went in there in that first couple days and said, hey, we'll have somebody within the next couple of weeks. We're absolutely right. They should have had somebody in the first couple of weeks. There's more stuff there's more evidence that I've seen in this case than I've seen on so many cases that sent people to death row, and they can't come up with a strong conclusion. I think they had a strong conclusion at the beginning, and I really do think that they're covering this up. I think that there's some people that they don't want to get in trouble. I think it's blatant at this point. We taped over those interviews, and the judge recused himself early on, and you know, we're taking this to Supreme Court. You know, these names being thrown out there. Let's remember this. We got to remind people sometimes that this theory about Odinist did not come from the defense. It came from the investigators given to the defense in the prosecution's own paperwork.
Yeah.
You know,
And
this
on the
isn't
flip
something
side
that
of
somebody
that,
made up.
if Richard Allen really is involved, on the flip side of that, your horrible collection of evidence and your mistakes, like losing interviews and things of that nature, could let this man walk. So even if you believe that Richard Allen is guilty, this stuff now is creating so much doubt in the minds of people surrounding this case that alone could make him walk. So there's two sides of that. Yeah, there's a lot of shit that they're, you know, whether it's conspiracy or not, that seems to stack the odds against Richard Allen. But at the same time, this lack of collecting evidence or being involved the way they should have been involved in doing the processes correctly could also have a man that possibly could be involved walk, because it makes you question a lot about that crime scene and the way things were collected and whether or not you can prove it with him.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sleuth had mentioned, you know, he thinks it could be realistic, but does he see runes? No. Well,
but
do you have
see
that clip, Otis? I'm sorry. Do you have that
No, I
clip
do.
of, okay, because I don't know if that's something that that our viewers have seen before, because I know I just saw it for the first time. I didn't mean to cut you off, Bobby, but that might be something too that is kind of like a good eye opener, because I'd only ever seen the depictions from Court TV on the way that those bodies were placed and the sticks were placed, and this account came from somebody who's not affiliated with Court TV in any manner that actually saw those depictions. And although he deleted the pictures, he created his own illustrations to make sure that that was not lost
from looking at the actual crime scene. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, sorry, Bobby.
I was just going to say, just to throw this out there about the ruins, it doesn't matter to me whether they're ruins or not. What's important to me is that they are cut sticks. cut with a tool, and
And
you have two
intentional.
people. Yeah, you have two people who liked to go out into the woods with cut sticks that they had cut and put into ritualistic little letters or whatever. That is a big solid clue to me. Whether they're runes or not, they're cut sticks, and you got two guys here who cut sticks for what they call runes.
And even if it doesn't have to do with those people, the intentionality of the way that they were placed in itself shows a signature of some sort. So to me, that is still important, whether you think it's cult related or you think it was just some random fucking psycho walking around killing people. That held significance to that person. You don't just pick up tree trunks and say, here, let me fucking toss it on the body. You know what I mean? Like, there had to be a thought process of intentionality behind that to some extent. I just no one's gonna convince me otherwise.
Right, and I think that I think that it doesn't really matter what we think these sticks mean. The fact that it matters to the person. Maybe they have a belief and we don't understand that belief. Therefore, we think they mean nothing, when actually to the people, and I do think there's more than one involved here, obviously, to the people that committed this crime, it means something to them. And we may not have a clue, so we may, be kind of knee jerk sometimes to be like, well, they're not runes. Not, hey, everybody has their own opinion. Don't care.
Look at how many serial killer signatures have occurred and reoccurred in cases that we didn't understand until that person was caught. People taking eyeballs, draining people of blood, posing victims in certain manners. It's not necessarily, take the cult portion out of it. There's intentionality behind it. There's a signature behind it for a reason. And we've seen it for dozens plus years with many cases, whether it's serial killers, one-time passionate crimes. There's a signature there for a reason. And that's something that scares me, that it's being ignored.
Right. I'm with you.
Yeah, before we start, I agree. Maybe it was a ritual and not a messenger's signature, and not left for others, but just a byproduct. Yeah. Go ahead. But let's hear a little bit about what Rick Snay, who got the a copy of those leaked photos, and he took, and as it says here, he drew a depiction directly from the crime scene photos. And what I find odd, tell me if I'm the only one who's seeing this, the way the sticks are positioned on the bodies, they look similar between the two versus what we see on,
Court TV,
where it looks like a big asterisk on one body, and on another it has a different shape. When you look at what this guy has depicted in his own little hand drawing of it, they look a little bit similar. So let's take a little, let's check this.
That's where all these photos have been coming from. The crime scene photos that I was sent, there were 4 of them. There is the tree, the F on the tree, which I have been told now by both the state police and the defense that it is legitimately from the evidence. Answered all their questions. He asked me to delete the photos, and I did. Before I did delete them, I drew diagrams of what the sticks looked like on the bodies. Anyone that tells you that those sticks were just randomly tossed on is full of shit.
You don't have to be at a point in your life where you feel like you're hanging on by a thread to go and speak with
Brought to you by.
As a licensed therapist, I often hear people think.
And it's a mental health commercial.
There's not one chance in hell that those are random at all. Some of them, the way they're laid, one underneath another, and then on this end is, no. And
so he brings up a good point. If you have a stick laying here and you have one up here that's underneath and a stick down here that's on, or I don't know, maybe
that and some are underneath the body as well. So it's like you have half of it under an arm and then the other half over top of the leg. So it's almost like you actually have to move the body to place half of it underneath and part of it on top. So it's not like it was just haphazardly tossed on top, because the arm doesn't move after the person's dead. You know what I mean? So
It doesn't?
there was intentionality. Surprise.
And at least one of those branches was cut with an electric saw. It's very prominent in the picture. You can see it. You need to understand what I saw. And if there's anybody else in the chat who saw what I saw, they will verify this. The only blood anywhere at the scene was on Libby's hands and a little bit on her face. That's it. There was no blood anywhere else. They were both very, very pale, which indicated to me that there was no blood left in the bodies. No drag marks. They weren't dragged. These pictures make it absolutely 100% clear there is zero chance that Abby survived and tried to crawl away. No. There's no chance of that. So, no chance that they were trying.
I'm going to see if I can move. Here we go.
Here's
Doesn't that look similar?
I thought the same thing. I thought it looked very similar.
You got there. You have here. I mean, that looks a lot more similar than what we see and, what we've been shown.
Yep, I agree. It looks, I feel like it looks totally different. It doesn't look anything like the shapes that we saw from the court TV depiction. And I'm not saying that they're putting that out there intentionally, but now you're getting this from an eyewitness statement that actually saw the crime scene photos. Vinny didn't see the crime scene photos. Barbara McDonald didn't see the crime scene photos. Anya Kane and the other fucker, I can't think of his name, Kevin. And then this gentleman actually saw the photos. And no one else has spoke out about it. And no one's denying what he's saying either. No one's coming out saying he's lying about the way those pictures looked. So I have a hard time thinking this isn't the correct way that it looks. This guy actually saw it. Why believe court TV people that haven't? And I'm not saying everything that they put out is wrong. I'm just saying I am more inclined to believe someone who physically saw the pictures than I am somebody on TV who is saying, well, this is what we think from the defense memorandum's depiction, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because this definitely, to me, has some similarities.
Yep.
Bobby, you got anything to add before I start this back up?
Oh, not at the moment. Just
All
looking.
right.
That Libby was laying there. Okay.
Zoom out. Zoom out.
I don't like it that big. I can't.
I don't either.
Okay. This is Libby. She was lying with her hands stretched out, her arms stretched out toward the tree, and her other hand out here. This was a large branch. Each girl had a large, long branch. This one looked more like the trunk of a small tree. Each one had one large branch here on the left side, on their left side. And on their right side, they had a long stick that was not like a branch. It was just like.
So here's the similarities. I mean, you can't really deny this. I mean, a big branch on the left side of both of them. To me, that's, look, and the reason I'm bringing this up, the similarities, is because how does it randomly fall to where it looks almost identical to each other?
That, and in contradiction to the other pictures that we've seen, the hand positions were different and the leg positions were different. So what was described and depicted in court TV's version of it was considerably different from even just the way the bodies themselves are laying. And if you watch one of the court TV specials where they have someone who specializes in ritualistic murder cases, she says that you cannot just look at the way the sticks are placed, but also the body. The body will have significance in the way that it's laid. And these are obviously positioned. You know, you don't just die with your legs and your arms positioned in that manner. So it had significance to that person to some extent. And in the depiction on court TV, the hands are kind of upward on her versus actually on her chest, which
Right.
makes a difference. And I believe in
Yeah,
the court
Vinny
TV
Vinny
one,
Politano pointed that. Oh, that
yeah.
may not be right there. You know.
And I thought in the court TV one, both sets of legs were crossed. And I could be quoting that wrong, but for some reason, I believe they had both girls' legs crossed, and that one was just down lower and one was up a little bit higher. So, but that in itself could totally change the view of what the meaning of those symbols could be, whether or not we're going to understand them or not. I mean, that totally is a different view completely than the ruins I was even looking up from the original video, the original depiction that I saw.
Right. All right.
Like a stick. You notice on this side, it's over here on Abby, and then she had a smaller branch right here. Okay. Abby was wearing shoes. She was wearing Libby's jeans.
She was
wearing
weird to me.
A Delphi swimming sweatshirt, which I believe also belonged to Libby. Here at Abby's head, there were several little sticks. And they looked like they had been laid out to kind of look like somebody said something about the Statue of Liberty or something like that. But I couldn't tell. These are the sticks that I guess are supposed to represent the horns. Now, I don't know if this one originally was straight up, but in the picture, it leans over this way, on top of this one. On the big branch on her left side here, her arms were up, her hands were inside the sleeves of her sweatshirt, and her arms were up like this. I've called it like she's getting ready to do the chicken dance. Laying across her, coming down across her chest, was a long branch. This branch came down and then it had a little branch off of it right about here. With this stick laying across here and the branch forming a cross, they added another stick right here that made that asterisk shape. Okay. The long one on her left side or right side here had a little bit of a branch out right here and then a long stick. Okay.
So quiet.
So over here, notice same thing, big branch over here on the left side, small one over here. This one branched out right about here, right about at Libby's wrist. This branch crossed here was higher up on Libby than it was on Abby. On Abby, it was down here. On Libby, it was across the throat. The stick that came here came down, and right about here, it had a branch coming off of it. And that branch branched off here, and then it had another branch coming off here. Okay? So, if you look at this, a couple of things you can tell. Now, this is more accurate than the other sketches that we've seen, okay? Because rather than being like up closer to Libby and more like this way, Abby was probably about 3 feet maybe away, and she was more this way, more of horizontal, almost like a 90-degree angle. Now, take a look at these shapes. Remember to set them upright as if the ground is here, okay, like this. And then draw them out see what you can figure out, see if you see anything. Look at some of the runes and everything, see if you see anything that looks familiar. There was some kind of sticks, branches thing right here, but you couldn't see it in any of the photographs. The 4 photographs I had were taken of Libby from like right over here, taken of Abby from like here past her head, and then a close-up of this area here showing the sticks, and another close-up of this area right here, which I'm guessing was showing where they found the phone, but I'm not sure about that.
All right.
I've wondered for a while, since we heard about the sticks thing, I think we've talked about it a few times, as to whether or not there could have been some kind of real crude, homemade, like, how do I say this without sounding like a dick? Like, could the girls have been hung by something homemade, like a deer skinning staying, something like a rack, and when they were done, just pushed the whole things over? They looked very similar. I don't know. I hate to think about that, but
yeah.
One of the things that gets me too is I just feel like that was too much to do in a short period of time, one by one person, but also during the day like that. Like I've always wondered if they were placed there in the evening after after the search parties ended, because I just can't imagine they were killed there. There's just not enough blood and other evidence there that we're aware of, and even just based on people that have seen the photographs, to believe they were actually killed there. And so I wonder where they were killed then, if they were taken from that position and then murdered somewhere else and then brought back. That's a lot of thought process and a lot of, for just a random killing. You know what I mean? I just feel like that's a lot of work for just a random
Could they have
killing.
maybe strung them up and drained some, take with them? I hate to even think it.
Yeah, I thought about that before too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your comment either there. Sorry, just keep talking.
Luke had mentioned, from what he's heard, Abby was dragged, and there's drag marks. If you look at the image, she's in a position as if she was being dragged. Now, Abby being the one with the leg underneath, I agree with her hands being up like that. Yes, but you're not going to drag somebody this way and their feet drag this way, and somehow that one leg ends up underneath the other leg. I'm not really being able to visualize that.
And where were they dragged from? Where is all of the blood? Why take the blood? Is that part of the signature? Where did the blood go? If this was such a graphic scene, and I hate to keep saying this stuff on the anniversary, because I hope that the family isn't watching something like this, reliving it all, but where is all of the blood then? And where was she drugged from? So if she was drugged from an area locally, did we do enough searching there to find where the actual murder scene occurred? Where did the blood go? And if they took it, what was the purpose behind taking it? Was it ritualistic? Was it a weird signature of a creep like Richard Chase that decides he thinks he can drink blood and live forever? There's got to be something's going on there. You don't just have someone with their throats cut and not have any kind of blood spill anywhere.
Yeah. Abby was the victim, missing the blood. She was most likely killed in the water.
Which is possible, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I never thought of that. I did not hear of any drag marks. I haven't heard that. Maybe that's a thing. Don't know.
And some of the clothing was found in the water too, so that might make sense as well. But then Abby's throat was also cut. Libby's throat was also cut. Where was her blood? Why weren't there drag marks around her? And why were the clothes mixed? You know what I mean? That's the other thing that stands out to me as being odd. What was the purpose of undressing and then redressing in different clothing or in multiple pieces of clothing? So you have both bras on one girl. You have both pairs of pants on one girl. or no, the one pair of pants was found in the water.
Mhm.
But I think it was 2 sweatshirts or something. That just was odd to me too. That was something that kind of stood out to me as a strange signature. Like, why is the one dressed in the other's clothes and then like multiple bras or like things like that? It's not like you were just trying to hurry up and redress them if you're taking the time to put 2 bras on one kid, you know? That's something that kind of stood out to me as well. But I mean, the idea of it happening in the water, I mean, is a possibility. I just didn't hear about any drag marks either.
Yeah, and maybe that's something, you know, I missed. I don't
Remember what
know.
the defense guy said? You know, this other defense lawyer, when he said that it looked like one of the girls was sacrificed and the other one was murdered. Like there's a difference between the way that they were murdered,
Right.
maybe the positions of the body, maybe the location of where they think one of the girls was, as opposed maybe one of them was used for a sacrifice taken elsewhere or just in a different section there. The other one
Yeah.
was killed outright. You know, they have some reason to think that. I don't know what it is. I wish we did know.
Right.
As far as the motive, Laura, sorry, were you going to answer that?
Yeah, no, go
Oh, okay.
right ahead. No, you're fine.
We did recently, I know like Otis and I had watched something recently about a possible motive for that. Now, this is just speculation as well, but it happened very conveniently right after Court TV released their depiction of what the pictures looked like. So if there might have been motivation behind getting the actual depiction out there so that it was known to everybody. And I'm not saying that's the truth because none of us have a fucking clue, but that was like speculation. Was the motive was they were putting misinformation out there, and the person, whoever was upset about that, decided they wanted to put the truth out there, the real pictures, so that people knew that what was being depicted on Court TV was not correct, so that it wasn't misleading information.
Right. Here's Sleuth says Libby was covered in blood. I didn't hear she was covered in blood. I heard there were
Yeah,
little
I haven't
spots
seen that
on
in
her.
anything.
There was little spots, drops of blood. Libby was most likely forced to undress and handed the hoodie to Abby, saying, "Don't lose this." So she put it on. Abby could have already been wearing 2 bras, and that's weird too.
Yeah.
I think that they said, which of course this is in the defense memorandum, so I'm not saying that that's truth, but they did put in the defense memorandum that it was, I guess, a larger bra, so they thought that was Libby's bra that was put on top of Abby's bra. So it doesn't sound like it was a bra that she just chose to wear out if it's not an appropriate size for her either. And I could be incorrect about that, but that's just, I remember that portion of the Frank's memorandum standing out to me. And again, that's coming from the defense. So either way, is whatever side you're listening to, there's a certain degree of bias. So that's why we're speculating. But yeah, I can see what you're saying about putting the hoodie on too.
Yeah, Abby was staying with Libby that night before this. You know, they stayed up most of the night and things. We've all been young teenagers. I believe this whole time they were lured to come there where they're coming to by somebody that they knew. And it wouldn't be shocking at all to find out that Abby wanted to accentuate herself at that age, because a lot of people do.
That's
and where
true,
2
too.
bras making, make you think I'm really sick, it could be something as simple as that,
Yeah.
Dudes would always stick socks in their underwear to make them look like they had big bulges.
There you
And
go.
girls would do it with their bras, sticking socks or whatever.
Hey, now you got people wearing ass pad diapers. So
I
you never
know,
know.
right?
I've thought this whole time that Abby especially was going there to meet somebody myself, because of the way she was kind of dressed up a little bit better. She had her hair up, she looking spiffy. She might have wanted to do that. I really do, and I always have believed that they were lured there by somebody that they knew, without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a pretty good assumption of who that probably was.
I think bottom line overall, the way the case has been handled and the way it's continuing to be handled, whether Richard Allen is involved or not, is really kind of fucking the whole case. Because you're either, it is literally creating so much conspiracy and so much attention, and not in the right light, in my opinion. So it's like I said, even if Richard Allen is involved or he is guilty, I know we stand on both sides because we are trying to be open-minded. This could potentially get him off. There's so many things that are just not done correctly. And I know we can't go back in time and process the scene correctly, but that is a lot of what is really screwing up this case, and the continuance of all the things legally that are posing an issue and not moving the case forward. You know, like you said, that the case could be thrown out because his rights were not given the way they should have been. So that in itself, you could have a potentially guilty man walk for those reasons. So I just feel like at this point, they at least need to tighten shit up to keep that from happening at the very least, and get things moving forward for these families, because I can't imagine them going through another anniversary in the manner that they've had to this past year, because this shit has blown up to giant proportions, and I can't imagine what that feels like. Being a mom, I'd have a really difficult time turning on any type of media at all.
Yeah.
We
This
also
is
have,
go ahead, Bobby. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this has been probably, I think one of you guys mentioned it, one of the hardest anniversaries. It has to be. It's not, a specific number, like 10 or 20, but because of everything that's been going on, it's like you got a judge who's throwing a temper tantrum. I don't want them defending that, and you have all this nonsense that shouldn't be happening. And I mean, who knows? I mean, I could be wrong, and next year be the most outrageous, anniversary, and hopefully by that time, we've progressed a lot more. It's crazy how this has happened, man. I guess in closing, I really do. I'm kind of at a loss for words, but I really do feel for this family. It's nuts. Kelly Two Trill is gonna visit the trillness that is around me, and I would like to one time, go out there and kind of take everything in. It's only a couple hour drive, I think. Maybe the the Two Trill crew. The Two Trill crew will go out there, just take it all in. I would love to do that one time.
I think that gives a whole new perspective, just seeing, like, even just breaking up the timeline, or who was where and what witnesses said what. You can see how far each bridge is from the other, where the benches are in relation to the bridges, or where the crime scene is in relation to housing, or I just think it gives a whole new spin on everything that we're thinking in our brains could be completely different than the picture we have.
Exactly, because all we're getting, of that whole location, and our perspective is based on the pictures that we see. To be there in person, to walk down that hill, or to be in that area. I mean, it may give us a different perspective, to where it just may enhance the fact that ain't no way two people's going to do this, or whatever. I don't
or
believe.
We could say, hell, he might
person.
have. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, one person could do that, but it's a 3 doobie cruise. Come on.
In closing, don't forget about who we're talking about. Remember the girls that like to play the saxophone, and the girls that like to go out on ATVs and be out in nature and draw pictures and paint pictures and be model students. That's kind of the draw, where I want to draw it back in. If you guys are okay with that, is just remembering the softball player and the volleyball player, and the bright smiles and the goofy pictures with the tongue sticking out, and that's what we want to remember. In the end, that's what this is about, and we've really gone away from what the importance is, and the people that are still here living that on a daily basis. When we shut this off, we're not still living that scenario, and they are. And I just hope everyone still keeps that in mind.
No, that's great point. Great closing. In closing, Bobby Two Trill, you got anything you want to add?
Libby would be 21 today. Abby would be 20. They might have beautiful kids, or be going to college. One of them might be getting married, and it's a shame. Family shouldn't have to miss out on that, and justice has to be done. Has to be.
Absolutely.
These girls,
And
their lives mattered. A lot of
yeah,
value there lost.
absolutely. And, as it's been mentioned a few times, during this case, the eyes of the world is watching, everybody, this is one of the biggest cases that we've seen probably since OJ. This is just, Hugh. I mean, there's, Casey Anthony, of course. There's been a lot of high profile cases.
Fuck Casey Anthony.
What?
Yeah.
What is it?
No, she was giving a
Yeah.
shout out to Casey Anthony.
Sorry, not Casey Anthony, but to her mother. Sorry, I said that backwards.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's a great conversation. Wow, it's like our first hour and a half show, and we probably could have gone forever. But I want to thank everyone who joined us. We picked up a couple new subscribers.
Great.
And it's awesome. I appreciate you guys chiming in. We may not all, agree on the same things, but it doesn't mean we can't sit here and have some good discussion. I mean, what kind of a discussion would it be if we all agree with each other?
Oh,
We'd just
no
be
shit.
patting
Right.
yourself on the, on the back, patting each other on the back. Yeah, good point. Yeah, you too. Good point. Yeah, good point. No, it helps sometimes to have some difference of opinions, about this. And, that's what we kind of strive here to bring about discussion, not, likeness and theories and all that stuff. Thank you, Laura. We're looking forward to it too.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your hump day, your Valentine's Day. See what I did there? Right?
Hump of time.
Give the loving a little bit of humping. I don't know where I was going with that. All right, guys. Have a good
Peace.
Wednesday, hump day, Valentine's Day.